It feels uncomfortable to record by myself. Who's gonna bring the energy? Not me. Anyway, hi, it's Bex. This is the Bex only Q&A, cause long story short, I get asked the same questions over and over and over again. So this is gonna be to just get all that out of the way. And you may notice I am totally barefaced right now. That is because I like watching those kind of like get ready with me type content, so that's what I'm gonna do. I've been told I have like a pretty chilled out voice, so mellow, hopefully it's nice to listen to. So I thought I could just answer the questions that you guys asked while I put my makeup on for QnA to go out in a bit. Maybe he'll make an appearance during this, but probably not, because I think he's just chilling in the other room with Dobby. So let's start, I guess. Or maybe, I think I need to do my skincare first if I'm putting makeup on properly. Also, I'm basically blind while I put makeup on, because I have to wear my glasses to be able to read anything. I can see to about this distance. And then after that, it's blurry. So I have my iPad with my questions on it. I think most of the questions are like about Korea, coming to Korea. How did you come to Korea? What kind of jobs? How did you get accepted as a foreigner? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. I asked on Instagram, my Instagram, and also mine and Gu's couple Instagram. Editing Gu or me, whoever edits this, probably Gu, put the ats here, and also yours here. Bam, bam, bam. So I have questions from Instagram and also from a YouTube post. If you missed out and you have a question, you can just leave it in the comments below. So first question, do you have any advice for learning Korean? Any courses you did or websites, apps, textbooks you used? So I am nowhere near a master of Korean. I would say, if you're familiar with the topic levels, which probably you're not, I'm probably like topic level 1. If I did like the university course, probably I'd go to level 2 straight away, because I'm higher than level 1. Basically, I'm self-taught, so I use like almost exclusively like apps on my phone and just like websites to give me tips on things that I should study. Like Talk to Me in Korean, they have a lot of free resources that are really, really good. They also have like a learning hagwon as well, which is like a private school in Seoul, I think, but I don't go to that. I work, so I don't have time. Well, I do, but I'm lazy. So I learned using, mostly actually the main thing I used was this app called Drops, like DROPS, Drops, on the App Store on my phone. I actually found that really useful for learning like basic words, like some vocabulary. But in terms of learning Hangul, which is the Korean alphabet, I mostly learned just by looking it up online and then making flashcards by myself. Because as a Westerner or someone with like a Roman alphabet language, it can be really hard to learn something that's essentially looked like shapes when I first started learning, rather than actual letters. But once you can learn that you can learn the Korean alphabet really easily, and you know, it takes literally like, you can learn it in a day, really, if you study properly. But my main like way I've learned new stuff has definitely been from being here. So yeah, I've just picked up a lot of stuff by forcing myself to read. I think the main thing is that I actually really enjoy learning Korean, so that motivates me to keep doing it all the time. And these days I'm always asking and new stuff. Also, a quick shout out, if you want to learn Korean, you can learn from Eun-gyu because he does Korean lessons. So there's a Facebook page. I'm sure he will put like the link somewhere in the description or in the video. And I'm putting SPF on my face now, by the way, for anyone who was wondering. The last thing was Ampoule, this vitamin C one, and this one is by Espoir. Because your girl is the color of milk, like slightly pink milk. So I need that SPF, even with the mask. And this one is nice and not greasy and makes my skin look really nice. I haven't even put any makeup on yet. I've been going for 7 minutes. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, next question. I need to unlock my iPad again. How do people get jobs in Korea, and is the visa process hard? So majority of people who get jobs working here as foreigners will be English teachers. That's like the main, easiest, in my opinion, way to get work here for sure. Obviously it does also depend on where you're from and how you look like, what you look like, unfortunately. So if you have to be from one of the 7 native English speaking countries. So I'm from the UK, so UK is accepted, Ireland, South America, Canada, Australia, and America. Those are the 7. If you're from any other country, I think it is possible, but it's very unlikely and very difficult to get the visa. Because I'm on an E2 visa, which is the education visa. I'm here strictly for the sole purpose of teaching kids English. So I can do that through public school or through a hagwon, which is a private school I mentioned earlier. I work in a hagwon. I work in a kindergarten hagwon, which surprisingly, actually, they do understand a lot of what I say. I didn't expect them to know that much when I first got there, because these kids are 5, but they can already like string together pretty good sentences. Yeah, so the visa process isn't hard if you are from one of those countries. If you're from a different country, then the visa process is very hard. You can get like other jobs. If you are from a native English speaking country, it's like not the end of the world, because you can get other jobs. Like there are some like limited jobs for like other languages, teaching other languages like Spanish or French or blah, blah, blah. But they are obviously a lot more few and far between. And you can get jobs in like other industries, but those are much harder to get because you have to have a really like high level in that particular field. Because you basically have to be able to prove to the government, along with the company that is hiring you, why you are better at that job than a Korean, like why they should hire you over a Korean person. And the government has to be like, yep, you're better than one of ours, so we'll give you the visa, pretty much. But I have seen it happen. Another way you can, wait, I forgot, what's the question? Jobs, just jobs, okay. I'm not talking about visas. I was gonna say probably the easiest visa you can get is the marriage visa, but obviously you have to find a Korean who will marry you. So, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. If you're from a native English speaking country, you're golden because you can just teach English. I won't get into the fact that it's obviously the best if you're North American and white and a woman, because they're what everybody wants. But generally speaking, especially in this current climate, you can get a job pretty easily teaching English because not a lot of foreigners are coming over because of Corona. So obviously you have, I just said obviously like 3 times. You have like the extra restrictions because of Corona. So depends if you want to deal with that or not. I have a mirror, but for some reason I'm using this palette as a mirror because it says a funny thing on it. Oh, it's dirty. Okay, next question. What kind of things are there to do where you are living? Basic Korea things, which doesn't mean anything to anyone who hasn't lived here. Not really a lot. I live in a very residential area, so because I didn't choose this area. Obviously I don't fault it. I like living here. It's very accessible. You just really have restaurants and like there's an electronics shop and supermarkets and noraebang, which if you don't know is literally translate to English as song room, so it's karaoke. Hongdae is like 20 minutes walk from here, or like 10 minutes by bus or subway. Have a subway station literally like 5 minutes down the road. And Hapjeong is quite a busy area. Shinchan is quite a busy area with like shops and things. So if you like shopping, which I do, there are plenty of like places that are easy to get to. Obviously, if you want to live like in those places, they're also very busy and noisy, and the nightlife is quite active. So I wouldn't want that to live around there. Like this area is very convenient still, because there's like CVS's everywhere, restaurants everywhere, but don't have to deal with like the noisiness of being in like Hongdae or Hapjeong. Which areas, places in Korea would you recommend when someone is looking for an apartment? Do you know any websites for apartments that are foreigner friendly in English? There aren't any in English. There aren't any websites like that in English, as far as I'm aware. There's Craigslist. I think you can find stuff on Craigslist, or if you're in like Facebook groups for expats, then sometimes you come across those kind of things. But in terms of finding an apartment, Korea's not super foreigner friendly. So I don't have that much experience. This is just from what I've heard, so take it with a pinch of salt. But everything's pretty much in Korean, and in terms of like actually finding a good place that's definitely not a scam, you are much better off going to a budongsan, which is like a, what's the English word? Yeah, realtor, like in person. But obviously if you do that, then you need to take a Korean person with you, so, or be able to speak Korean yourself. In terms of good places to live, really, if it depends what your priority is. Like if you have money, then you can pick one of the really nice places like Gangnam or Yeouido, or I forgot, somewhere else. There's another one and I forgot. Like the rich people areas, there's really nice. Yeouido, for example, is right near Han River Park, the main one, like on Han River. So super nice area, but very, very, very expensive. But if you're looking for like something that's more in budget, then places like student areas are the best. So like Hongdae, around Hongdae, because Hongdae has obviously Hongik University, so very cheap rent. A lot of places you can find cheap rent and like decent size. Were Koreans hospitable to you when you came to Korea? This is kind of like a non-answer because it varies. Generally, I haven't had any bad experiences with Korean people since being here, but I am a white woman, so I think that does affect it a little bit. And there's also the fact that I haven't interacted that much with many Korean people. Like, the main Korean people I've actually like interacted with are Eungyu and his family. And obviously like my friend's boyfriend who is Korean. Yeah, I guess it was fine. I've heard a lot of stories. I think it depends on who you come across and how they're feeling that day. Because it's just like any other place. Some people are nice and some people are dicks. Like, it's not about whether it's Korea or England or wherever. It's just, you know, everyone's just themselves. And if you're unlucky to come across someone who's an asshole, then probably you're gonna have a bad interaction. But I have heard stories about like my friends getting cussed out on the subway or whatever just because they're foreign, and because of like the COVID situation as well is worse. But obviously that wasn't a thing when I first came here, so that's not really relevant. I would say yes, I'm fine. I never really talk to any of them because I don't speak Korean well enough to talk to any Korean people. Do you miss home and why? I kind of laughed when I read this question, honestly, because I was like, yeah, of course I miss home. Like, what kind of question is that? And if I didn't miss home, then probably it's because I have a bad relationship with my family, in which case I wouldn't put it on YouTube. But yeah, I miss home a lot because my family is there. That's why. And I miss like some home comforts as well, like some food, like snacks and things. Because I'm from England, most of like the foreign Western stuff you can get here is from America, so it doesn't really do anything for me in terms of my cravings or wistfulness, you know. What is your favorite place in South Korea and why? I don't really have one. I like going to Hongdae because I like buying things. Oh, Busan was nice. If you watched that Busan vlog, Busan was very nice. But I don't know if I'd want to live there or not. I like Seoul, basically. Next question. When you first came here, were you scared like you won't be able to adjust or won't be able to understand because of the language barrier? If yes, how did you overcome the fear and blend in? Yeah, of course I was scared. It was terrifying. I came here totally alone. Like, obviously I was gonna be, because I did in-country TEFL course to learn how to teach. I knew I was gonna be like mixed in with a bunch of other foreigners when I first got here, but I didn't know any of them yet. Like, I had one girl who I'd been messaging on Facebook a bit, but that's obviously not the same. So yeah, I was really scared. I remember when I flew from Gatwick Airport in London, and I cried so much when I had to say goodbye to my parents. And then my mom and dad both cried as well, because I have a very close relationship with my family. And like, I'd lived away from home for uni, but I'd never lived that far away. So it was really scary. But in terms of like getting settled and blending in, everything was very exciting at the time. So like, I didn't really think about being sad that much and being scared. I just kind of, you know, made friends with the other foreigners, and we all like kind of tried to learn about Korea together and how to exist here. A lot of them have left Korea now, actually, from my original group that came together. And then obviously I met Eungyu, so in terms of like settling in and blending in, I kind of had him as a guide if I had like any concerns about what I should do in a certain situation. And also because I came here to work in a hagwon, my hagwon director as well took care of me a lot and like helped me with a lot of things, like when I had questions about things. And a lot of things, you know, I figured out by myself, or I like asked other expats in like an expat forum that I'm on Facebook. You know, there are plenty of resources out there to help you get settled, and plenty of people who are like in the same boat as you. So it's not, once you get here, it's not that scary. Like the fear is gone, because it's like, what else can happen to me now? I'm already here. Were you scared being alone in a foreign country? Already basically answered that. Are Korean high schools like the ones we see in K-drama, or is it like normal school? I don't know. I didn't go. I don't teach in high school. I know their uniforms are really cute, but that's about all the input I have on that. Next question. Where will you guys stay after you get married? We still don't really know. Like, the plan was England eventually. Well, we were supposed to go back to England next year, but that kind of has been put on hold because of like various things like money and Dobby and Corona and like figuring out what we're both gonna do. Because obviously we make some small money off of YouTube, but not enough to live off of. So we need to make like a proper plan about like what I'm gonna do for work and what he's gonna do for work when we get there. So there's a lot of like complications in terms of what our plan is for those things. And when we're gonna get married as well. That's still like kind of up for discussion. Bex, what is the name of your city, town in England? Thanks. I don't live in a city or town, like where I grew up at least. My parents don't live there anymore, but the place I lived in for majority of my life, little village called Walpole St Andrew, maybe a population of about, I'd say between 100 and 200. Maybe just over 100, because very residential, obviously. Everyone lived in big ass houses. We literally only had like 2 or 3 buses in and out per day with nothing on Sundays. And we didn't even have a corner shop, just a church and a school. And that was it. So when I say I grew up in like rural area, I mean like rural. Like a lot of the time when I say to like Korean people, like my co-teachers or Eungyu or Eungyu's family, they don't seem to quite understand what I mean when I say I grew up in a village. Because like when I say village, I mean my next door neighbor was a field. So Seoul is quite different to that. But yeah, I get asked where I came from a lot here, and I'm always just like, you won't know it. So I'm just like near Cambridge, because that's like the nearest city, but it's not Cambridge. What is the work-life balance like as a teacher? It really depends on what school you work at. Like, my work-life balance right now is really good because I only work, it's classed as part-time hours, but it's not really. I work like until 3 p.m, 9 till 3, because I just teach the kindergarten. So I don't work that long hours. I finish quite early, so I can get home by like 4 p.m. And that's very nice, obviously. But if you work like full-time hours, it can be very draining and very hard to find like time to socialize. Especially if you do like a lot of places, because they're hag ones. If you work in a hag one, a lot of the time they will be like afternoon start. So my first school, I worked 2 o'clock until 9 p.m. So I had to be there by like 1. It was really nice not having to get up early, but by the time I got home, it was like 10 p.m. So I literally would just eat dinner and then go to bed. I didn't get a lunch break or anything either. So I'd literally have like 5 minutes between my classes to maybe eat something or drink some water. And obviously in the morning when you're going to work later, you're kind of just like, I don't want to do too much because I don't want to be tired for when I go to work. Also, yes, I am applying eyeshadow with my fingers. Get over it. Don't aggravate me with this in the comments. Usually you'll have weekends off though, so it's not like if you do long hours during the day, it's the end of the world. It's just, you know, can be quite taxing on your body and your mental health. If you are coming to Korea to teach and plan to go and travel and visit loads of places, you're probably not going to get time to do that unless you want to be like permanently drained, is my only advice about that. Okay, next question. Most challenging thing about teaching in Korea? I would say I've had a pretty good experience so far, to be honest. Like, my schools have been both pretty laid back, run by people who actually seem to care about their employees, and care about the kids, and not just like crazy. And I'd say I'm a pretty good teacher as well, so I don't like have a lot of issues come up, but you can get like crazy boss and crazy parents, in which case your teaching experience will be pretty miserable. To be honest, I have friends who can speak on this much better than me, because one friend in particular was very unlucky with her schools. So she had literally 2 schools in a row that were just dreadful to her. Like, there's people who have been put up in a motel because their apartment that they were supposed to stay in wasn't ready, put in a basement apartment with like exposed wiring, you know, not informed properly about stuff that's going to happen at the school, being forced to do things that they don't want to do. And to be honest, like, because of how the E2 visa works, they can kind of keep you hostage. If you want to quit, then unless you just leave the country, like, you can just quit, but that nullifies your visa, even though you've paid like quite a good chunk of money for it in my case, and in any other British person's case. So if you want to leave to change jobs because you don't want to work there anymore, you have to ask your school to give you a letter of release that says you've completed your obligation, and that way you can transfer your visa over. But if you quit, they don't have any obligation by law to do that. So it's really just up to if you have a good relationship with your boss or not. So they can just be like, I don't want to give it to you. And they just won't give it to you. And there's no like punishment for that. So in that case, you would have to then go and do another visa run to get a new visa if you want to change jobs. So it can be quite stressful in that regard. Just like start a new job because you're never sure like what you're gonna get, if they're gonna be good to you or not. Like, the worst I've had to deal with is my school is a bit disorganized sometimes with like letting me know about the curriculum and things, but my bosses and my co-teachers are very nice. So Fav Foods and Drinks so far. This is from my friend. My favorite is probably barbecue. Korean barbecue is like the best thing you can eat in Korea, especially if you find like a really good Korean barbecue place. Like there's one in Hongdae that me and Angie like to go to, and oh, it's so good. And they cook the meat in front of you, obviously, because it's barbecue, but they cook it for you. So you don't even have to do anything, you can just watch. Give me a memorable moment from your first few days in Korea. The main thing I can really remember from when I first got here is we had like an induction week. So we did a lot of like touristy things around Seoul. And one of them was going to Gyeongbokgung Palace wearing hanbok. And oh, it was so hot. I felt like I was walking in like a steam tent. You know, you get like those one-person steaming tents on like Amazon that have been like a thing recently. So like I felt like I was walking around in one of those wearing a hanbok in like peak summertime, because this was August, but it was still a lot of fun anyway. And I had this one guy friend who was like dressed in like emperor hanbok, and he was like playing the part and walking around like looking very regal and like majestic, and it was so funny. Did it take you a while to get used to living there? Yeah, but I mean, there aren't like that many major differences. It's just like small things. So I'd say before I even started my job at the hagwon that I was working at, I was already used to living here. So maybe a month. What is the most important among writing, reading, and talking? Oh, talking, definitely. Talking, 100%. Because that's the hardest thing to do. I mean, it does depend if you're like here to live or here as a traveler. If you're as a traveler, reading is probably the most important. Because being able to read Hangul is like, to me, in my opinion, like, what's the word? A skill that you can't like possibly find anything more valuable to have. That doesn't make sense, but I hope you at least understand what I mean. It's invaluable, because when I first came here, there are so many signs that are like in Konglish. I could already read Korean when I first came here, so it helped me so much, and it's helped me a lot with like learning new things. I think people who don't know how to read Hangul will probably learn new things way slower just living here, because they can't read all the things that they're seeing. So I would say reading actually is the most important. But obviously talking is super important as well, because it's really hard to do. Even if like you know Korean, actually, like if you understand everything, actually talking and making sentences is still like way harder. How is your life in Korea? It's fine. I like living here. I'm still here. Can you suggest me some jobs to do in Korea as a foreigner? Well, I feel like I already covered this. Teaching, mainly. How did you go to Korea? Didn't I already answer that? I'm not going to mention the company because I don't really recommend the company. I learned how to become a teacher of English as a foreign language. That's what it stands for. Teaching English. I mean, you can just Google search teaching English in Korea. There'll be a lot of stuff come up because it seems to be like a popular thing to do these days. Like I said before, if you missed the cutoff for asking the questions, you can. Probably I should try and be a bit more energetic. Anyway, that was me getting ready. Hope you enjoyed. This jacket is so cute. Oh, I feel like I've come out of Back to the Future. Maybe I'll do another one if people still have questions, like a lot, but probably not, because I don't like doing by myself for my news channel. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and see you in the next video. Bye.